Let me start off by saying good morning to everyone, and I'm standing here with Haley Carter, who is the chairman of the Mayor's Commission Against Gun Violence, and I know that there are several members of the commission, the Mayor's Commission, that are here. If I can just get you, just raise your hands so I can just see all of you. Quite a number that are here. Let me start off by thanking you all again for the hard work that you've put in and the recommendations that you've come forward with. I really appreciate that. And then this morning we have with us Rhonda Hart, who is the mother of her daughter that was killed from Santa Fe, Kimberly Vaughn. And so Rhonda, where are you? Thank you for joining us today, okay? And just know that our heart and prayers are still extended towards you and your family and all of the students and their parents and relatives and friends. So thank you, and make this moment today even more special. Let me just say thank you for attending today's news conference of my Commission Against Gun Violence, and I should say the city's Commission Against Gun Violence, on behalf of all of us. And joining me, of course, is the chair, Haley Carter. We're here today to announce the second of two reports I asked the commission to research and write when I appointed members to serve last year. And as you may recall, when I joined the young people in March for Our Lives downtown, and if you were a part of that March for Our Lives, let me see your hands as well. Thank you all, because it was through your efforts that this commission was created. And one of the requests was the formation of this commission. I appointed 37 individuals who represent a cross-section of the Houston community. I gave the commission a very clear charge to develop and propose specific recommendations to improve gun safety in our schools, neighborhoods, and communities through action on the local, state, and federal levels. We last came together in August to announce the first report on a set of recommendations to reduce gun violence and address gun safety issues in our schools. Today, we are here to discuss the second report on state legislative recommendations. It's a timely announcement because the state legislators returned to session in January, and the government relations team for the city of Houston has been engaged in Austin on this and other priorities. The latest report is divided into various sections: 4 legislative recommendations, 5 budget amendments, and 2 state administrative actions. I want to highlight the 4 legislative recommendations made. First, the commission recommends legislation that mandates the establishment of active shooter building codes. This would keep our children and teachers safe by requiring, for example, doors that lock from the inside. Schools should have a fully functional public address PA system, along with active shooter medical kits available and security cameras. The second, the commission recommends statewide legislation to institute universal background checks for all gun purchases to close the gun show loophole, which currently allows purchasers, including violent offender, to avoid background check by purchasing guns. It is estimated that 25 to 50% of gun show sales are from unlicensed or private individual sellers. The guns used in Columbine High School, 101 California Street, and 2010 Pentagon shooting were all purchased at gun shows through this loophole. Number 3, the commission recommends a ban on 3D printed firearms. 3D printed guns are firearms that can be made anywhere in the world with inexpensive materials and a 3D printer. They are particularly dangerous and pose a threat because they allow for the acquisition of virtually untraceable firearms, which can be manufactured by someone who would not normally qualify for gun ownership. This ghost market of gun manufacturing circumvents gun purchasing laws and regulations. The fourth and final recommendation, the commission recommends the state establish a red flag law protective order that would give law enforcement and family members the help they need to suspend firearms access during periods of crisis. Let me just say that I support all of these recommendations and have charged the government affairs team in Austin to work with the legislature, both the House and the Senate, in order to pass bills that would bring these, to achieve these desired objectives. Mental illness is strongly associated with self-harm, and common mental illnesses such as depression can increase risks of suicide. Remember, 2/3 of the gun deaths in this country are someone taking their own life. In addition to these legislative recommendations that would each require a change in state law to take effect, there are 5 budget riders the Commission has endorsed that we hope members of the House and Senate include in the one bill that has to pass each session, and that's the State Appropriations Bill. Briefly, let me just touch on them. 1, funding school counselors that deal directly with students concentrated on their well-being. 2, fund mental health, suicide prevention, and trauma-informed training for teachers and school staff. 3, expand mental health first aid training to include law enforcement. 4, fund Harris County Psychiatric Center's more intensive outpatient services that provide the most appropriate supportive care that would free up more inpatient capacity. And 5, fund efficient transmission of the Texas Department of Public Safety records to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NICS. Now, when I was in the legislature, going back even to 2013, the legislature was not appropriating much funding for mental health. Starting in 2013, the legislature started to do more. But more, substantially more, is required and needed in this area. And at this point, I want to pause and reintroduce Haley to talk about some of the next steps she and the Commission plan to take. She is the chair, but also a retired U.S. Marine officer, former Houston Dash soccer player, and a U of H law student. And I can think of no better person to help lead this commission than Haley Carter. Haley.
Good morning. So I'd like to begin, of course, by thanking the mayor. I don't think we could have done this, I think, collectively as a community and as a city if we had not had the resources, especially for the commission. We really had the time and resources that we needed to make these recommendations, to pull them together, and so I'm really appreciative of that. I'd like to thank the commission members, the subcommittee chairs, and members of the community who contributed to the recommendations and provided feedback, specifically Rania and your team at Crime Stoppers. I'd like to thank Moms Demand Action, Everytown for Gun Safety, Texas Gun Sense, and of course the brilliant young men and women of March for Our Lives. So to talk about some of the next steps, the commission was established for the community to use as a resource in the fight against gun violence. And to that end, we now have a website for the public to share our work. Our website will help with the following. It provides copies of the commission recommendations, methods for reaching and contacting elected officials, current legislative proposals, supportive materials that will aid in local dialogues and conversation, news pertaining to the fight to end gun violence, and an opportunity to sign up to participate in testimony and local conversations and roundtables. Our website is www.houstonagainstgunviolence.org. Again, that's houstonagainstgunviolence.org. And I can officially announce it is now live. We are also working with the government relations team and scheduling an advocacy day with various members of the commission and members of the community in which we will travel to Austin to advocate and testify on the measures we've recommended during the state legislative session. To get the latest and to register your name to potentially testify with us, again, you can visit houstonagainstgunviolence.org. In the next few weeks, commission members will be out in the community speaking at various events and roundtables on these legislative measures and budget riders. As these variety of measures show, ending gun violence will take many forms. From building codes to law enforcement, our legislation tries to address what we can to make a difference. We do make a big focus on mental health, and it is important to note that people suffering from mental illness should not be thought of as a danger. They should be thought of as our neighbors, our parents, our families, our friends, our kids. They are just a part of Houston as much as we are. Tell me this. What city in America needs more trauma-informed teachers than the city that suffered one of the worst natural disasters in North American history? It makes sense that young students feel anxious, depressed, concerned. It is up to the adults, and frankly some very involved students, who we have with us today, to make sure we provide the services that they need and they deserve. I encourage all members of the community, particularly those in local leadership positions, to reach out to commission members about the recommendations and partnering with us to present and advocate for their implementation. It takes a village, and we should all be empowered with the resources and knowledge to advocate for pragmatic solutions that improve the safety of our schools and communities.
Again, let me thank Haley, and I think it would be remiss, running Crime Stoppers, let me thank you all, because these recommendations don't quite work 100%, but without the support of our supportive organizations, and Crime Stoppers plays a very integral key role in keeping our city safe. So if you do these recommendations and we continue to support organizations like Crime Stoppers, Moms Against Gun Violence, we will get it done. I do want to take the time to acknowledge the members of the commission. So if you would simply stand up and just identify yourself, that would be very helpful. In fact, let's do this. Let me ask you to sit down. And let me ask that you stand up one at a time and just turn around and let people know who you are. Give your name and who you are. If you're with an organization, please identify yourself.
Abby Keenan with the Anti-Defamation League. Amy Turney, Moms Demand Action for Gun Citizens in America.
Last year, the United States Great Houston, U.S. Army Corps.
Maddie Lake, Marshall Executive Director.
Andrew Hughes, South Texas College Law Houston student. Jerry Ashworth, Tier Memorial Firm. Ian Skinner, American Leadership Forum.
And one of the reasons why I wanted, and then the other organizations, if you're here, if you would stand and give your name and the name of your organization if you're here. Ron, you want to stand? Okay. And Rhonda, if you'll just stand again, because, and the reason I want you, we don't ever want to forget Kimberly and the other students, because quite frankly, we're standing here on their behalf and on behalf of so many others. And collectively, it's important that we make a difference. The legislature is currently in session. It's in session now. And this is the time to act now while they are in session. And so I want to again thank Haley for her work and the work of this entire group in coming forth with these recommendations.